something we should have is contact numbers.
Yeah, for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, so that we can, like, I had that problem the other night at a meeting with the Alton Budget Committee, and I could text the town administrator down there and say, I can hear you, but you obviously aren't hearing me.
Tim, you have 2 people on and 1 mic unmuted. Do you know that?
We can hear you, Audrey. Can you hear us?
No.
Suzanne Ryan, can you hear us?
I don't even see her up there on that screen anymore.
Tim Cronin, can you hear us? Okay.
She's not answering.
Audrey, can you hear anything from the group down there?
I can't.
Okay, they're all logging out.
Wolfeboro IT is all logging out?
Yeah, it says Wolfeboro IT. Can you all log back out? Log back.
Make MJ.
Yeah, okay, they want us to log off and log back on. If anybody didn't see the chat. What are we supposed to do?
Can anybody hear us now? Can
It looks like that
Audrey,
says
can you
we're
hear
going
us?
to log out, which will kill the meeting. Can y'all log right back in? Oh, now they say, hold on.
Audrey, can you hear me?
Okay.
Suzanne, can you hear me? Tim, can you hear me? Oh boy.
Is anyone else getting dropped off the phone by dialing in with the phone?
Tim, can you hear me?
I don't think so, Tim. Suzanne's the only other one on the phone that I can tell, and she seems to be on here without any problem.
I'm on a Verizon phone up here, and it just keeps dropping me off.
Oh,
And it's I have 3 bars.
Can they hear you through the computer?
Yep. I know how you feel.
Can you guys hear me? Any of
Coming
you?
up shortly, there's going to be a high-speed internet in our area, so it'll be a good thing. From outer space.
Excellent.
Just Google Starlink, and you'll see what they're putting up there.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. Luke, can you hear it? Yeah.
It does not appear so. Now he's putting a thumbs up, but I don't know what that means. Luke, if you're listening to us, no,
Jump up and down.
yeah, I don't think he can hear us.
No.
Oh,
We
no,
can't
he's
hear,
He's
we
writing
can't
message.
hear, yeah.
No.
Yeah, it says we can hear you, so
Oh, okay.
Well, we,
Can't hear you.
but we
That's
don't
the
hear
idea.
him.
They can hear us apparently.
We can't hear
If you can
you.
hear us, would you respond, please?
Wolfeboro IT just notified us that they can hear us, but they're not transmitting any sound at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me
Technology's
now?
great when it works.
Tim, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
I guess not.
We have this one. You want to run it off this? No, go.
here? Or the-
Can you guys at home hear us?
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
I guess not.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Tim, anyone, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can anyone hear me? Audrey, Tim. Check, 1, 2, check.
We've lost Travis. He just signed out. And Luke disappeared. So
Can you guys hear me? Tim? Audrey? They heard me for a second.
I think there's a time limit on how long they stay without being able to connect, and I seem to remember it's a half an hour, or they'll reschedule the meeting, but I could be wrong. I was just about to go look that up.
Good try. Down here.
Can you guys hear me here?
hello there.
Audrey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, take it over.
Okay, take it over there, run the meeting.
You're very echoey. A lot of feedback.
It's off. Okay, we're gonna have creative again.
Oh, that's awful.
You can sit in there. I don't know if you're turn this off.
Okay. Okay, guys, you can hear me on this, right? This is going to be a little bit harder to do it this way, but I think it's the only way we're going to be able to do it right now. Audrey, can you hear me?
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's almost normal.
So this is going to be, it's going to be a little bit tougher to do it this way, but if everyone can hear me, we're getting to the point where we're going to need to open this meeting here.
But nobody can hear her.
What's that?
I can't hear her. That's the only thing.
Can one of you guys speak so I can hear how the volume is here? Suzanne, can you say something?
Yes, I will say that the planning board had to continue a meeting because they had difficulties with the public being able to understand. It wasn't audible. So if we get all that feedback and crazy sounds, I would recommend that you continue the meeting.
Okay. Everybody can hear you here pretty good. Can you guys all hear her on that? Are you guys able to hear that? Okay.
Are we going to be able to hear the people in the hall speaking?
Yes. I'm gonna bring the computer right over the stand.
So
So
they can hear me in the
they can
hall
hear me
fine now,
fine now,
and you'll be able to hear
you'll be able
them.
to hear
So
them. So
I think we're
I
good to
think
go
we're
here.
good to go here.
So it's now 7:19.
7:19.
I'm Luke Freudenberg, Chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment. To my immediate right is my Vice Chair, Sarah Silk. Remotely tonight, our Secretary, Tim Cronin, Member Suzanne Ryan, Member Audrey Klein. So I will call this meeting to order. Again, this is a virtual meeting and in-person session at the Town Hall, 84 South Main Street, Wolfeboro. We encourage social distancing. All zoning board members are available for live viewing on Wolfeboro TV, Channel 25, or the WCTV YouTube channel. As required by RSA 676:4, the zoning board hereby notices the following projects. So, Tim, can you hear me? Tim Cronin? Okay, I'm going to read. First public hearing, tax map number 203-63-63, case number 17-SE-20, applicant New Hampshire Boat Museum. This is a public hearing for a special exception under Article 17, Section 175-107-E of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance to allow for a special exception for the Boat Museum with a 5-year expiration. This property is located at 57-59 Bay Street.
Luke, I think I got an audio.
Yes, Suzanne.
Yes, Suzanne.
Just a point of order. Are you supposed to do a roll call? And then we're supposed to say why we are either present or not present?
That's excellent. Okay, we'll do that real quickly. We'll do a roll call. Sarah Silk.
Oh, I'm here in person.
Here in person. Audrey Klein.
Present. I myself.
Suzanne Ryan.
Ask him if anybody's.
Present at home due to the virus.
Thank you, Suzanne. Tim Cronin.
I'm here, and there's no one else in the room.
Okay. And Dave Senecal called me earlier that he's not power still, so he's not going to be meeting tonight. So thank you for that, Suzanne. Public hearing. Going to call this public hearing open. Presenter tonight. I'm going to bring the laptop over to the stand so they can see the. Good to sit.
Luke, the camera at your desk is now working.
All set?
Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for your time this evening. I'm Bob Sterndale. I'm a trustee of the Boat Museum. I have.
Travis, could you ask him to get closer to the mic?
Closer?
Yeah, there you go.
I think I've given you pretty much the whole story in the application materials. If you'd like, I can run through that quickly. All right. This is a recurrence of an application that first occurred 3 years ago. The zoning board granted a special exception at that time.
The special exception had a 2-year life. That was 3 years ago.
By my math,
By my
that means
math,
it
it expired about a year ago.
So we are back here for a repeat performance of the site plan application. We're essentially asking for the same thing, only this time we'd like to give it a 5-year life. The Boat Museum proposes to build a new museum at our site on Bay Street. You have the site plan and the application materials. I don't know if I should read the whole application to you, but I think perhaps a synopsis is in order. Is that appropriate, Mr. Chairman? The first question in your application materials asks about site suitability. The site has been reviewed by the planning board and received site plan approval. I think that in itself is pretty good evidence that we have an adequate site. You have the plan materials. We have decent access to Bay Street. And we have met all the environmental requirements in order to receive a state alteration of terrain permit. Neighborhood impacts, Bay Street is already a very busy street. The kind of traffic that we expect to generate isn't going to make much of a difference on Bay Street. I think you've probably all driven through Bay Street on a summer day, which is when our traffic would peak. And I think the high estimate of 100 trips a day from the museum, I emphasize that that's a very optimistic traffic level from our perspective. Would not have much impact on Bay Street. Bay Street provides good access to both North Main Street through Mill Street and to 109A. We're not going to make a lot of noise or vibration. Traffic would be the primary noise source. Once the construction is done, we're not going to be generating dust or glare or heat. Fumes, odors, anything like that, that sort of activity. There is some of that going on in boat museum programs, but that's over on Center Street at our existing site. We don't have any expectation of doing any of that work on Bay Street. Hours of operation will be consistent with, the operation of the museum, which is what we're asking you to approve tonight. Primarily, we will see visitor traffic during the day, and probably in the evenings, we would expect to see some educational programs, lectures, things like that, and some fundraising activities. One of the principal activities of the museum is raising funds. We don't run on public money, we run on charity, and whatever income we can generate from our own programs. The use that we're proposing is compared to some of the specifically allowed uses in this district, which include things like restaurants and retail shops. I think we're going to be a relatively benign neighbor. Public services and facilities aren't going to be much of an issue. We have public sewer and water available. Stormwater drainage. If you look at the site plan, you will see abundant evidence of planning to deal with stormwater runoff. In fact, it occupies a good deal of the site, the facilities to deal with stormwater runoff. Fire protection, we don't know yet whether sprinklers are required. If they are, well, of course, we'll have them. The site access to the parking lot will be adequate for large vehicles like fire engines and emergency vehicles. Parks, we're not going to cause any use of park. In fact, I don't know if any of you have ever looked closely at the site. For the first time recently, I took a walk down near the waterfront of the site. It looks like a park, and we intend to keep much of that waterfront area relatively free of development. So it will do walking trails and such down there, so it almost adds a park. We don't burden the schools in any way. Adequacy of the site, the parking scheme has been approved by the planning board. In fact, I think it caused a change in the site plan since the first time that the zoning board saw this application. The parking was increased a bit, which led to slight changes in the orientation of the building and the location reserved for the mini Mount Washington boat. It appears in the site plan. Plenty of open space left after we get done building, traffic circulation. We're on a busy road already. We have a decent entrance to the road. We don't plan any fences or screening. The site provides pretty good separation from our neighbors, except one house close to us on one side has a row of nice tall evergreens, which are pretty good screening materials on their lot, right at the lot line. Signs will conform to town ordinance. We don't operate any commercial vehicles. We do occasionally move boats around on boat trailers pulled by private vehicles. We will respect the dark sky requirements of lighting, certainly. Neighborhood integrity. The zoning ordinance has some interesting provisions which I think point directly to the use of the site as a museum. The ordinance states that the purpose of the district is to, quote, provide for a transition from the existing village core to a district providing professional, institutional, cultural, limited retail activity, mixed commercial and residential use. Well, I think we're a cultural institution, so we fit that pretty well. Museum is a use specifically anticipated by the ordinance, subject to this review by the zoning board. We need to get your special exception in order to operate. But I think we've arranged this in such a way that it's not going to cause anybody any problems. Really, it is a use that's promoted in the master plan. Impact on property values, well, I'm not an assessor. I don't know that I could give you an authoritative opinion, but I think when you look at the permitted uses in this district and the other uses that might be allowed by special exception, the museum is actually a nice complement to the existing uses in the zone and a good neighbor for the other people in the zone. The master plan language that I'd like to mention here says, section CF6, specifically supports the museum's growth plan. It says, quote, improve the town's position as a center for museums in order to improve the quality of life of its citizens and increase attractiveness to tourists, end quote. Section CF16 mentions that, quote, support a joint effort by the existing local museums, and it lists in parentheses, among others, the Boat Museum, to undertake growth plans that would promote increased opportunities and visitation for Wolfeboro citizens and visitors to existing local museums, end quote. Perhaps I should stop there and see if there are any questions on that. I want to talk about the 5-year life request. Perhaps I should wait a second and see if there are any questions on what I've done so far.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Luke?
Yep, let me open the public hearing, Suzanne. Suzanne, go ahead.
Luke, are you taking questions from the board?
Go ahead, Suzanne.
Thank you. The question would be to Tavis. Is this site plan going to go back to the planning board?
Tavis says
no, it's good to go.
Okay, in that case, I'd like to know more specific information as to the hours of operation, rather than just saying typical of a museum. This museum is a little different in its location on the water. So could you articulate what the hours will be?
Well, I think I'd rather not give specific hours. We're asking for permission to establish the use as a museum. Museums do a variety of things, and they may be done at a variety of times. The typical operation is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 9 to 5, with evening hours for special activities. But I think it would be inappropriate to constrain the museum to never operate outside of those times.
I have a question in reference to hours. Take the Wolf Trap, for example. Travis, does a business like that have a restriction on their hours of operation?
I don't believe so. One would have to be placed on it for that to occur.
So if other businesses on the street have no restrictions, why would we put the restrictions on this person?
Oh, that's a board
Their
consideration.
grandfathered.
I can't hear Tim
I think
Cronin.
the issue is that there's a town noise ordinance, and so whether they're open or not is kind of not relevant. What's relevant is, are they having an impact? And I think that impact is is enforced through the town noise ordinance, as it is with the Wolf Trap and any other activity that is downtown.
Correct.
Yeah, I don't think the museum has any problem complying with the town's noise ordinance.
I was concerned about Sundays.
Sundays will be a normal operating day for the museum, especially during the summer season.
What is your concern about Sundays?
Well, there is a church on that road. I think it should be respectful of Sunday hours.
In what respect?
It's a religious church. Typically, you don't go full bore with your business on a Sunday morning.
Does that mean on Center Street where there are churches and on Route 28 where there are churches, we're going to go back and restrict them from having any new businesses around there or selling businesses that are in business to shut down during that period of time?
As what I said before, those places are grandfathered. We're dealing with a new application.
What is the impact greater with this or any other business than with a church? Speaking of, say, the Bay Street Church, they can have outside services on a Sunday.
Well, what we have proposed, look I'm not gonna nitpick a Sunday morning, but let's go back to trips generated and let's look at it as a whole. Bay Street is going to have to be reconstructed in part and parcel because of the boat museum to the tune of $350,000 as it stands in today's money. They are saying that the trips are pretty minimal, but they have projected 20 additional trips to Bay Street per day, and they have a goal of hopefully reaching 100 trips per day. And they're talking 10 hours per day of operation as an example of an estimate. So I think there is a concern. I know there's a concern amongst the neighbors. This is a new board here this year. And for those that heard the last presentation of the application, the neighbors were concerned about trips and travel on Bay Street. And partly because of that, we're going to have to widen Bay Street, put in sidewalks, survey and resurface and redo the drainage. So I think that all encompassing the trips and the hours, it's a good discussion to have with this board.
So can you remind me, because I'm not all that up to date, but my understanding very generally is that the master plan calls for development of Bay Street and the reworking and re-engineering and rebuilding of Bay Street, including a sidewalk, because the master plan anticipates creating that as a, you know, a commercial-like environment rather than a residential-like environment. Am I not correct with that?
You're
No, you are correct
pretty
in
much
that, Audrey.
correct in that it was all generated by the proposal of the boat museum when they bought the land. And so when the boat museum came to light that they bought the land and the master plan was being rewritten, it wrote that anticipation into it.
Okay, and I wasn't, you know, I wasn't part of the master plan, but my feeling is that the anticipation is that that's being prepared for more than one business on that street.
I disagree.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? The public hearing is open. Any members of the public? Members of the public for or against it?
What did you say?
Asking members of the public, Audrey, if are there any members of the public that want to speak either for or against it or have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Board members?
Yes, I have another concern
Okay.
or a question, more or less a question. They state that the, which is correct, the museum has no commercial vehicles unto themselves, but the commercial vehicles that will be traveling that road are transportation buses, the scenic buses and the tourist buses. So that was another concern that the abutters and neighbors had, and that is in part and parcel why they're going to have to widen this road to accommodate the Greyhound-type buses. I just am bringing this to the attention of the board for their consideration. I'm not going to argue the issue all night, but I think you should be made aware.
Thank you, Suzanne. Tim or Audrey, any other questions?
I want to talk about the request for the extending of the time period for the special exception. I don't know that we have the authority to do that, and I'd like to get an opinion from the town attorney as to whether we can do that before we do it, if that's what we're you know, inclined to do. I do feel like special exception may change over time. I understand that causes difficulty with the investment and the creation of a long-term plan. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but before I go down that road, I want to know whether I really need to think deeply about it or not, and whether we have the authority to extend that period.
Audrey, this is Tavis. I agree. I do have a question about extending beyond the 2 years. To me, the burden needs to be on the applicant to demonstrate a bit beyond what is what's presented in the application materials. There's not really a clear justification to go from 2 years to 5 years. Typically, the 2 years is required in case the town were to make any changes in the zoning regulations or otherwise, which really would have more of an effect on perhaps hours of operation or vehicle trips or something specific. In this case, the special exception is really for the use. And the use shouldn't change. Perhaps the feeling is that it might take more than 2 years to get the use established, and therefore they want some more time. And that is something I think the board could consider. But you know, to look at it the other way, the master plan was just adopted, so it seems somewhat unlikely there would be any major change that would affect a special exception within the next 5 years. I do think you have the ability to go beyond 5 years, but I think you need to create a finding as to how you justify this going beyond 2. Does that help?
Luke?
Well, again, I don't know that the RSA gives us authority to extend it, except for by incrementally every 2 years by a request such as this.
Correct, and my recommendation would be that the board hold to that. That puts the onus,
I have another.
puts the onus back on the applicant.
The amount of trips. It says 100 trips per day. Hold on, Suzanne. It says 100 trips per day. Is that 100 cars coming in? Is that 50 coming in and 50 going out? Could you please define 100 trips per day?
Typically, trips are round trips, so that would be 50 in, 50 out.
Okay.
But I would defer to their traffic engineer on that.
50 trips over a 10-hour day does not seem excessive.
Luke, can we talk about this extension?
Yes, actually, Suzanne, wait 1 second. Sarah has a question here too, so. She's been waiting. Just hold on 1 second. Sarah?
Yes, thank you, Luke. I had a concern about the 5 years. Generally, the special exception is good for 2 years, and,
We can't hear her.
okay. I have a concern about the 5 years. You are given a special exception for 2 years, and you are allowed to come in before that expires if you feel like you do need additional time. In this instance, we had to virtually start over because somehow it fell through the cracks, it lapsed, it went away, they had to start from ground zero. But if they go 2 years and they feel that they don't have the funds and they need additional time, they can come and ask for it. There is an avenue to extend that for another 2 years or more. An extension can be more than 2 years. The concern I had just a little bit in reading this was they said that one of the reasons they were concerned about was ordinances, and Tavis seems to have sort of relieved my mind about changes in ordinances as the master plan was just adopted, and he doesn't feel that that would happen in 5 years. I was a little concerned about, worried about aggrieved neighbors. Well, the process gives both the applicant and the abutters equal standing at all times. And I was just a little put off by the thought that they were trying to circumvent 50% of the process. I would be in favor of 2 years and an opportunity to come back and get an extension. Very likely they could get maybe a 3-year extension, but I really hate to go from the 2, and I have concerns about whether we can even do that, as I think Audrey said in the beginning. Thank you.
Luke? Suzanne here?
Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
Yeah, regarding the extension, Sarah brought up the point. I'm in agreement with what seems to be not going the 5-year route. But Sarah brought up the point about the neighbors. These people have lived in limbo on this project in anticipation of it going forward. Some have put their house up for sale. Some have just come to live with it. However, the town of Wolfeboro voted on this ordinance, and they put in the 2 years in accordance with state law.
Very small.
We have been given the authority to extend it. We have had occasion where people have come in to extend, and we have granted, given the circumstances of their background. In this case, I think that they put the horse before the cart. They should get the approval. They should do their due diligence. And should they need an extension, then come in and make the similar case that they've made currently. but I am not in favor of going beyond the 2 years that we are authorized to give. I think it sets a precedent that we will come to regret when other developers come in for such.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Do you want to make that a motion?
Do you want to make a motion that we?
Okay, hold on.
I would like to get that off.
Okay,
Yep,
hold on.
I'd like to get that off the table and make a motion that we do not extend the 2 years to 5.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's
Okay,
been made
motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion from the board?
Yeah, I don't understand. Are we voting to extend it for 2 years? Or are we
No,
just voting
not.
to not extend it for 5 years?
Not to extend it from the 2 to 5. It will be 2 years if approved.
Would it make sense to do that upon approval rather than prior?
I'd like to get this off, no, I'd like to get it off the table. I think it's a important issue.
Okay,
I have a question for Travis. Changing that from 5 to 2, does this application have to be resubmitted?
No, they're
The
applying for
applicant-
2. They apply with their their application grants them 2 if we approve it.
he was asking.
Who was asking? Who was asking? Tim Cronin. What was the question?
Tim, can you ask
Tim,
that
can you ask
question
that
again?
again?
I'm looking in here, if they're asking for 5 and we're saying, no, you can only do 2, can we revise that in a vote? Or do they have to reapply for it?
What the statute says under 674-33,
Roman
Roman numeral 4,
B.
B,
Special
special exceptions authorized under this paragraph shall be valid if exercised within 2 years from the date of final approval, or as further extended by local ordinance, or by the zoning board of adjustment for good cause, provided that no such special exception shall expire within 6 months after the resolution of a planning board application filed in reliance upon the special exception.
Right?
So if
If you want to leave it at 2, they have the ability to request an extension at a later date,
or needs to make a
finding for good cause to go beyond the 2 years.
See, I can read that to mean that it can be extended by the board if they come back and ask again. I'm not
Correct,
clear on that.
that's how we have done it. Our policy has been, if we approve, it's written in for 2 years after site plan, the 6 months for site plan, and then we have had occasion for people to come in and ask for an extension, and I can only think of one case because they didn't meet water quality purposes, we would deny them. Other than that, they have met the requirement for extension, and sometimes it's a 3-year, sometimes it's a 2-year, given their circumstances.
Correct.
I have another question about the application.
I tried to
I tried to read the statute without inferring any legal opinion in that. So I agree that the extension is after the initial 2 years or before the expiration of the first 2 years, where good cause can be demonstrated. Not that you could tonight go for 5 years, for example.
Thank you for that clarity.
I have a question on the memo page, under the subject line. It says something about a variance filing date of 11/16/2020. What is that?
We get a motion on the floor and seconded.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
So the motion.
So the motion is seconded, and this is a motion to not extend the
Special use
exception
past 2
past
years.
2 years.
Correct?
Correct?
Suzanne?
Correct. Correct.
Roll
Correct.
call vote.
I'm going to do a
I'm
roll.
going to do a roll call vote.
Audrey,
Audrey,
Yes.
Tim Cronin,
Tim Cronin,
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan,
Suzanne Ryan,
Yes.
Sarah Sill,
Sarah Sill.
Yes.
myself is a yes.
Myself is a yes. Okay.
Can we make it clear in the minutes that that reflects that is for this period of time? I don't want to dissuade them from being able to come back in at the end of 2 years.
The question is, what is the application requirement for the extension?
It might be,
It might be the same.
would
It would likely be the same.
so that the
So that the board would be able to have public input to help them determine good cause.
So you're asking for renewal of special exception.
No, we're not asking.
No, we're not asking for it. We're saying the process allows for you to apply to extend in 2 years.
So the application for extension is exactly the same as applying for a special exception.
Well,
How would you do it?
I think the proof is different.
if you establish the use within 2 years, you wouldn't need to reapply for the use.
That's right. There would be no opportunity to change the use after 2 years. It was already.
You wouldn't need to, because the use is in effect.
If it is established,
Correct.
any change in ordinance will have no effect.
Well, having a hard time hearing the conversation.
Okay.
He needs a microphone.
This one, we're talking to me, get it now. Okay, my point is this. I don't know that you have a well-established procedure for this so-called extension of the special exception. It sounds to me like it is exactly another special exception. It differs in no way from what we're doing tonight.
Now think
Now
about
think
this.
of this.
If we had
If we had
a
a building started within 2 years, which is a real possibility, but if we started our building within 2 years,
any
any changes in zoning after that point would be moot,
would have
no effect on what we're doing,
because our
because our use would be grandfathered.
Vested.
Yeah,
Yeah, vested, okay, vested is the word.
we're
We're asking you to give us that same level of protection that would exist if we built the building in 2 years,
for 5
for
years,
5 years. Because this is not a typical development.
this is
This is a charity-funded organization
that seeks
that seeks to do something that is very specifically called for in the master plan and accommodated in the ordinance.
We seek
We seek your help in implementing this in a realistic fashion.
your
Your convention of doing this for 2 years and never more
is not
is not what the law intends. The law very clearly gives you authority to extend beyond the 2-year period.
and I think
You ought to pay attention to that.
Just for a point of order, I let the applicant speak again because I kind of cut him off before and because of how chaotic this meeting is here with the noise. Members of the board.
I mean, after Travis's explanation and after what the gentleman just said, I'd like to have a legal opinion on that.
Continue the public hearing to a date specific.
Luke?
If that's the consensus of the board, I have no problem getting the town attorney involved. I'd recommend the board continue to a date specific.
I would like to see that, Travis.
I would too.
Well, you're just a motion away from it happening.
Yep. I'll entertain that motion.
Luke, I couldn't hear a
I'd like
word
to
that
make a
you
motion that
said.
Travis checks with the town attorney to see if the 5-year is unrealistic or illegal against what we currently have written as law.
Kim would like to get
For
an
statute.
opinion of the town.
We've already taken
So,
a vote.
to ask for a legal
Said we only
opinion,
granted
if
two
at
years.
time of initial approval or initial action, if the board can grant greater than 2 years under the
What is
statute.
Tim's question now?
Correct.
Correct.
You would have to get the vote reversed to go back to town.
Yes, and
attorney
I'd
to vote on it
clarify that
again.
we use the word legal rather than unrealistic or realistic.
I agree with Susan.
Sarah has brought the fact that we've already voted on not moving past 2 years. And her opinion is if we're going to bring the town attorney into this, we should reverse that vote and make that vote moot so that it can go forward to the town attorney, and then the vote can be properly done after we have the information.
Agreed. Suzanne, could you reverse that vote?
I'll let somebody else do that.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reverse the vote where we stated that only a 2-year extension could be given and not a 5-year.
Pending legal opinion.
I'll go ahead and second that for discussion. Roll call vote. Audrey Klein.
Yes. I can't hear a word of what Tim is saying. He doesn't come across. I have no idea what he's voting on.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
Okay, first, Suzanne has to say that.
Sorry about that. I lost my phone connection.
Tim's making the motion then.
You want me to continue?
Yes, Tim Cronin.
I'm making a motion to, I'm sorry, I lost my phone connection there, to reverse the ruling that we had stating only a 2-year extension could be given, and give us time to check with the town attorney to see if there's any legal stance between a 2-year and a 5-year. Can the 5-year be given? And then continue this the next month.
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion, that the town attorney be given the information that the applicant has already had a 2 to a 3-year approval. So we'd be looking at 7 to 8 years that this would be in flux with an approval. I think the town attorney needs the total background on this proposal.
I agree with that.
Could I try to clarify that a little bit? Maybe I don't understand, but my understanding was that their special exception that they got for 2 years has already expired. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So it seems like we could move forward with the assumption that we're starting a new 2-year application.
Correct. Correct.
And then the questions of extensions can be asked of the attorney. And we can meet at a date certain, which would be next month's meeting, whatever date that is.
Correct.
That's correct, Audrey. Audrey, that's correct. However, they have had an approval that has lapsed. So in essence, they will be having up to 7 years to get this off the ground. And I think that background information, while legally you are correct, they are starting from square one, I do think the background of this application should be forwarded to the attorney so they can see that the time frame has been ongoing.
I think that's fine. I don't think that's going to make any difference, so there's no reason not to send that information forward.
Yeah, I just chiming in. I don't have any problem sharing that information with the town attorney. However, the question to me is more relevant to the statute itself as to whether the board can go beyond 2 years for good cause. So the zoning board may ultimately want to consider whether good cause has been established if you can do it. But the question is it legal to do it anyway? Does that make sense?
Yes.
On the motion. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to, hello?
Yeah.
My question is to Tim.
Yeah.
But now 2 years, they have an avenue to come back and get it approved for 2 years or perhaps 3 years. I don't understand what you're asking for, because this is all possible for them to get their 5 years by following the process which seems to be outlined in the statutes. So I'm just concerned about spending a lot of money talking to town attorney about something that has a very clear path already outlined in the regulations that we already have. And also, we had someone come back to us. We did grant them an extension. In that case, the state shut them down because they didn't have enough water, which interestingly enough was a concern about the abutters from the get-go. But water over the dam, or no water in this case. But, Tim, I don't understand what your reasoning is. Can you explain that? Because I couldn't hear you earlier.
I think when Travis read the statute, at the end of that, it said that there is a potential of going further. And I'm trying to remember the exact term that he used. It seems like we have the ability to do that. The gentleman that is making the application feels the same way. We're looking at it a different way. So by asking that question, I don't think it's going to be a big expense, is to get a ruling on that, to find out, could we give him a 4-year extension or a 3-year extension? I don't know what the answer is after Travis read the statute. It doesn't seem clear.
I think the problem is that we are not giving an extension at this time. We are given an approval at this time, and the statute says years for your approval. An extension
As is to the town vote.
The extension comes when the approval is about to expire.
Okay, we have a discussion on the motion. So the motion we have on the floor right now is to rescind the last vote and go to town attorney and ask for a ruling on whether we can extend the approval beyond 2 years, if approved.
Actually, it's if we can issue, not extend it.
If we can issue it.
Let's go back 1 second. Sarah brought up a good point. If the last one has expired and this is a new application, then it's not an extension. Correct? They're asking.
Correct. This is a new application.
Which takes everything else. If you're going along the fact that it's not an extension, and we're looking at, if you had anybody else come in and ask for a similar type application, would you automatically give it a 2 years? Is that what the statute is?
We can only give them 2 years. We can't, at that time, we can't give them 1 year. We have to give them the 2 years, after which time they have the ability through our voted ordinance to come in and ask for an extension. But
That's my
just
question
cause.
of the town planner. If somebody comes in, would they automatically get a 2 year time frame?
No. What do you, I don't know why you're so confused by this.
I'm not confused, Suzanne. I'm asking a specific question. If somebody comes in with a similar type application, is the standard, if that is approved, to give a 2 year time frame?
That's the law. That's our town law and our state law. We can't give them a 1 year. We have to give them the 2.
So why don't we
Yes,
just
and
turn around?
we can't give them more either.
Correct.
That's my question. That's the question that
Correct.
I was asked.
Okay, Tim, we have this motion on the floor. Let's vote this up or down. I'd like to do a roll call vote.
Go ahead.
Audrey Klein,
Yes.
Tim Cronin,
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan,
No.
Sarah Silk.
This is just a vote of attorney, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Both is a yes.
Now we're looking at this thing as this is a brand new application. 2 years, correct?
Correct.
That's a motion for me to get in touch with the town.
So here we have a motion. We're going to get in touch with the town attorney and continue this to the next meeting. That was just the motion, so.
And that's,
Could we do
that's been
the
taken-
date certain?
The date certain will be the next meeting, which is
But Luke,
January, yes, Tim.
if under normal procedure, this gentleman came in and did his application today, the most you'd give him is a 2-year time frame. I don't think we have to go to the town attorney. We just approve it for 2 years.
Well, finally, that's what I was getting at. Give him his approval and then find out what we do about the extension. Do we give it to him now or do we give it to him at the end of 2 years?
Okay. Tim, make that motion.
I'm
make a
gonna
motion.
say, no, wait, we haven't been through the criteria. I think we should just quickly go through that we agree or disagree with the, I don't know, 5 points or whatever they are. And then make a motion to, I'd ask Luke to lead the discussion on the criteria for special exception.
I still have a question about the paperwork.
Okay.
On the memorandum, top page, under the subject, it says a variance filing date. Is that supposed to be the special exception filing date? Or is there a variance associated with this project?
No, it's a
No, it's a special exception filing date.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll go through the criteria real quickly here. Site suitability.
Yeah,
Go ahead. For the new application.
It is, but I'm just updating Luke. This is exactly the same information that the board previously approved. This is the same memorandum that was brought forward 2 years ago. So if the board wants to accept them as presented in the memorandum, you'd be effectively accepting what you already approved 2 years ago.
correction. This is not the same board. We have a new, two new board members and a new chairman. And I think that we should not break from protocol and stay in good habit of going through the criteria.
I agree with you 100%. What I'm saying is if you are going to differ from what your predecessors on the board did, you need to be very specific on your findings.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go through these criteria. Adequate usable space, I would say yes, that the applicant meets that. Also meets, obviously meets adequate access. There's no environmental constraints that I can see. It doesn't appear they're going to have any excessive trip generation, noise or vibration, dust, glare, heat, smoke, fumes, gas odors, or inappropriate hours of operation from what we know. There'll be no undue nuisance or serious hazard, pedestrian or vehicle traffic, including location and access and design, off-street parking, availability of public services and facilities.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead.
What is the state of the water supply with regard to what they might need with regard to sprinklers and water main? Do we know?
I have not been told that anything is not in line currently. But again, I don't believe the building permit has been submitted either.
Well, let's put it this way, assuming they end up needing sprinklers, do they have, we're dealing with the public services and whether there's adequate public services. Have they determined what's adequate and whether they even have a chance of getting that?
Well, if they don't have it through the municipal water supply, they'd have to provide it on site, and presumably within the building without having to modify their site plan.
Right, so you're saying a cistern? I mean, if they're either going to have public water supply or they're not, and when does that get determined? If we're looking at the special exception and it's based on the impact to the public services and facilities, when are we going to have the answer to that question?
The way the application has been submitted, there's going to be no impact. But again, no building permit has been submitted.
So
So I would say that that's poorly presented then, because that information could be given.
Can't submit a building permit.
well, there,
I mean, a modest sewage load, you know, and the sprinklers could be significant.
they could be
It
significant.
could be
I
significant.
guess my concern is we're looking at potentially approving this for 2 years and then potentially approving it for another extended period of time that we don't know. When are we going to start getting some specifics as to what they're going to need to do to the infrastructure to create this project? It's been 3 years already.
Well, the project
Well, the project
went to
is not identified for sewer and water impacts. No property is allowed to draw water or provide sewer that would limit their abutters' capacity.
So if it's
So if it's determined at the time the building permit is submitted, keep in mind, they're not able to submit until they have the special exception.
But they did have a special exception for 3 years, or at least 2 years.
I understand that, but I can't make them apply, and until they apply, people don't look at sprinkler systems and sprinkler loads.
With all due respect, that is part of the site plan.
correct, which
Correct.
Is what is your your town facilities? What are they going to be there? If they're not, how are you going to create them?
maybe in order
For the ZBA to address this, they need to request the applicant provide a fire engineering analysis of the proposed structure and the sewer load analysis.
I think they should do that before they come before us again.
That's a hardship. This is normally resolved.
Yeah, this is not, sorry. Yeah.
It's a good thing the museum.
I can't hear you.
doesn't have a budget for an appeal.
Hold on one second.
It's a good thing the museum doesn't have a budget for an appeal. The misinformation bandied about here is really disturbing. Now, the process is your own consultant here, your own staff member has told you
Can't hear.
that this issue gets resolved at the time the building permit is requested. We've been through special exception. We have site plan approval that is still valid. We are not ready to apply for a building permit. We'll find out that will be resolved to the satisfaction of the town.
I can't hear what the applicant is saying.
It's been like, I was listening to the applicant. The applicant would like to make another statement, and I can open the public hearing, and that's what I think I'm going to do. I'm going to open the public hearing with the applicant, make one more statement with regards to your point, Audrey, and address it.
I would not, I don't need that to happen. I mean, you can do that if you want, but that's not going to impact what my point is.
Okay. Any other members on that issue, the availability of public services and facilities?
I have a question for the planner.
I think
Travis,
Audrey,
would
I
the
think
town of Wolfeboro issue a building permit if those services were not readily available?
No, you're not able to issue a building permit without those matters being addressed. That's correct.
Thank you.
I think Audrey has a valid point. I think also that in this period of time, what the town has recognized, and it goes back to what we were talking about, the road improvements. I believe that what Audrey is getting at is that, yes, they are going to have to hook into town water and sewer, and that, yes, the taxpayers will end up paying for it. I think it's a valid question or concern, given that as lovely, and I mean it's beautiful, that the proposed building is, it's going to be a tax exempt endeavor. So I think Audrey's question is most justified. as to what's needed and who's paying for it.
I guess I'd like to rephrase that. I think probably that the services along Bay Street need to be improved regardless. But my concern is that the plan needs to be developed very soon with regard to the specifics about what they need, because if we're going to continue to approve the special exception, then we need to be getting additional information as time goes by. If we're looking at, approving it now based on what we see here, I would expect in 2 years, if they come back for an extension, they'll have more information. That's more detailed than we have here. Otherwise, what's the point of extending it?
I think that the nature of this meeting, the way we've had it and had to deal with this, I think the applicant, I don't want to speak for them, but the applicant is aware of that, and they're aware that as time goes on, they're going to have more information when it's needed, and the applicant is very that. But for right now, I think right now we got to focus on getting this approved for the 2 years. If that's the board's will, and getting the town attorney, and then we'll see where we're at. And obviously, as this comes down the road, the applicant's going to have more information before they go and submit for a building permit or anything else,
Or an extension. So to that end, the site plan that we have here that we're looking at, is this the site plan that was approved 3 years ago?
That's correct.
Or has this been updated with information in the interim?
There are minor changes to the This is what the planning board.
This is what the planning board approved with the conditions from the planning board. So there are some minor changes with regard to parking, traffic, open space, fencing, landscaping, etc. But everything that you're looking at is as approved by the planning board, including their conditions.
So I would just encourage the applicant, because it doesn't appear as if very much technical work has been done in the last 3 years, that happened in the next 2 years before they come back in and ask for an extension.
Nicely said.
I mean, if the town is never going to put in a main that's big enough to service their needs, we don't want to be kicking this can down the road for 10 years.
Okay, we're going to continue to appropriate the site plan, and then immediate neighborhood integrity, historical use as an established use, impact on property values. I don't see anything there. And the proposed use structure is consistent with the spirit of Part 1 and the intent of the master plan.
I think it is.
At this point, I entertain a motion with the criteria outlined by Travis on the, for the board.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented for the 2 years, along with the comments that have been put through by the Wolftown planner. Director of Planning.
I'll second.
Okay, Audrey seconded. Is there any further discussion? Do a roll call vote. Audrey Klein.
Yes.
Tim Cronin.
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan. Suzanne Ryan, you still there?
You're muted, Suzanne.
No,
Okay. Sarah Silk?
This is for the 2 years on, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So myself, yes. Okay.
Are we going to move on to the next item now? Luke?
An invitation. for a boathouse too.
Yes, Tim,
I'll read it.
okay.
Next applicant is tax map 243-60, case number 18-V-20. The applicant, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, is Sonia Joust. Public hearing for a variance under Article 10, Section 175-70A 1B of the Wolfeboro Planning and Zoning Ordinance to allow for a variance from the front setbacks to a new single-family dwelling. The property is located at 9 Fairway Drive.
Okay, we have the applicant's representative here.
You're going to be talking to them on, talking to us on.
Will do. Good evening, members.
Good evening, members of the board. I am Brian Berlin. I'm a licensed land surveyor and the owner of a company called Land Tech
With
with offices in Ossipee.
With me tonight is
Tom Doobie, the contractor in this project,
and the
owners
or the buyers are the Smiths, who will be doing the building of the project. Similar to the last case, we're dealing with an expired permit. In this case, it's an expired ZBA variance. So we reappear before you for the exact same thing, except the house is a little different from the variance application of 2 years ago. I would like to start with the pictures, please, if you can find those in your packet. There's 2 pages of them. The first page has 4 photographs. The second page only 2. Referring to the 4 photograph page, in the bottom left, what I call picture 1, shows this lot from the road. And in the foreground, you see a fire hydrant, underground utility, vault, power and telephone, and the site also has city sewer and water. In other words, the site is ripe for development. Picture 2 discusses why we're here, and that's the upper left-hand corner. This is taken from about 35... Okay, yep. In the upper left-hand corner is about 35 feet from the lot line, looking towards the road, downstream, showing where that 30-foot setback line is and the 20-foot setback. In the top right photo is the right-hand abutter, Mr. and Mrs. McCabe, and as you can see, their home is set way back from the road, well beyond the 30-foot maximum setback. Lastly, in the bottom right-hand corner is the left-hand abutter, the Shapiros, and you can see there too, they are way back from the 30-foot maximum setback. And the house in question is going to be in the right edge of that bottom right photo, which is a proposed home at this time. On the other photo page, showing only 2 photos, the top left shows the approved driveway crossing. This is approved by the State Dredge and Fill Board and by the Planning Board for a special use permit to put a driveway and culvert across the wetland and the stream running right down the middle of that wetland. And the bottom left picture shows from the building site looking at that exact driveway location. So it's sensitive land, there's a stream running through it, and there's wetlands to both sides of that stream. The stream is not year-round, it is ephemeral.
I remember walking that 2 years ago and it was dry.
I, for one, have never seen it dry, but I don't walk it that often. So we're dealing with an unusual ordinance. This is a maximum setback ordinance of 30 feet in the village residential zone. It has a minimum setback of 20 feet. So zoning demands that the front of the home be somewhere between 20 and 30 feet from the home, but not further than 30. The first picture shown you, or the second one, actually demonstrates just how wet and how much water is flowing through that 10-foot window between minimum and maximum zone. A little history. In 2018, this project was approved for a 14-foot wide driveway over the stream and through the wetlands. That was in 2018, and that has a permit life of 4 years. Excuse me, that's 5 years for Dick and Phil. A year later, in March of 2019, the planning board granted a special use permit for that exact driveway, culvert, and wetlands crossing. And then in November 2018, the previous zoning board approved this variance, allowing the building to be greater than 30 feet from the road. I believe as it did 2 years ago, getting this variance, all the same conditions exist. The variance will not be contrary to public interest because the variance will allow the landowner to enjoy their property as highest and best use with minimal wetland impact, which is not contrary to public interest. Item 2 for a variance request is the spirit of the ordinance is observed because the lot is environmentally challenged with a bisecting stream and wetlands. A variance will allow a permitted land use with minimal environmental impact. Minimizing environmental impacts is within the spirit of the ordinance. Response 3, substantial justice is done because demanding that a new home be placed no greater than 30 feet from the street would place that home within the wetlands and its buffers, which could be an injustice since a better location is available. The variance will allow the landowner to construct a residence at the most logical location with minimal environmental disturbance. In this case, that most logical location is a lot of upland in the northeast corner of the lot. In this particular case, the maximum setback of 30 feet is not appropriate given lot conditions and causes a true hardship upon the landowners. Criteria 4 is the values of surrounding properties will not be diminished because with the variance, the home will be built back farther from the road, similar to its two immediate neighbors, and in harmony with all neighbors. A brand new home in a residential development with restrictive covenants will not diminish surrounding property values. And lastly, criteria 5B in this case, owing to the special conditions set forth above, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and a variance is therefore necessary to enable a reasonable use of it because the land between the minimum setback and the maximum setback is mostly wetland or wetland buffer. The lot would be rendered unbuildable without relief to this maximum setback, which again is a true hardship. So there's a plan you can see in the last page of the packet. It's the same plan submitted 2 years ago, except the footprint of the home is different. It's the same driveway, same setback covenants, and residential use. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
I have a question on the proposed house and garage. Are they exactly the same footprint that you were approved last time?
Hold on 1 second, Tim. For the record, I'd like to do a roll call of who actually went to the site visit. Audrey Klein, did you go to the site?
I did not, but I'm familiar with the lot.
Okay. Tim Cronin?
I did not this time, but I did on the last application and know it well.
Okay. Suzanne Ryan? You're on mute again, Suzanne.
Suzanne, you're muted.
I didn't, and I don't remember if I went to the last one.
Sarah Silk?
I didn't go over the weekend because of the lot, because I know the people in the neighborhood.
And I went by today, so. I'm going to open the public hearing. Tim, you have a question for the presenter?
Yep. The question I had is the proposed house and garage, is it the exact same footprint that it was for the last application?
No. And if you can see it, that's the footprint of the old application. This home is a little bit smaller. Meaning this current proposal is a little bit smaller. Is that helpful? Yes.
Tim, any other
Any other questions?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay.
That's the old one.
I have a question for Tavis, I think, maybe.
Okay.
Thank you, Garthon.
So the variances to the setback, are all the other conditions in that zone met here, or are there other issues that might need a variance? And what I'm thinking is that, does the zone require that the garage not be on the street side of the house?
I'm not aware of the zone requiring that the garage be behind the front plane of the house. In the
I
zone.
believe it says it has to be to the side or the rear. I might,
It is to the side. It is to one side.
not from the street. I want to make sure that we encompass everything that needs to be addressed.
Well,
Actually, the proposed is more in compliance than the last application.
because
The last time this variance was approved, the garage was, the closest element to the street.
Well, the last time Audrey didn't sit in on it, I don't believe. She's brought a new perspective.
Well, I think, yeah, I was reading through the village residential zoning because it's changed since I read it last.
Okay. He's gonna keep looking for that. Is there any other questions? Either for or against, or have any questions?
Well, this is 17570E.
One 17570E reads, garage shall be located to the side or rear of the principal dwelling unit. The garage shall be integrated into and masked by the residence or set back at least 15 feet behind the front building line and not the dominant architectural feature on the streetscape. So I would suggest that the building could be located where it's shown, but not that particular footprint.
as represented,
Without additional variance.
Could you repeat that?
Well, clearly, given the location of the driveway, a different design would be virtually impossible.
Yes. But Sarah has a question, so.
Well, and technically, the footprint does not depict it as a garage. It just shows the driveway leading to it.
I have garage on mine.
I do too.
I have it on mine.
Doesn't say on mine either.
Doesn't say garage on mine.
Do they have a copy of the old one?
Don't know which one. They should have that one.
They should have that one. You guys have this one?
See, put the camera
I
on the
think I
bottom.
have the old one. No, I don't have that one.
yeah, this is the one that.
Yeah, this is the one that was submitted.
Apparently, the old one went in the packet.
That's not what I had in my packet.
May I go back to my question?
Yes, Sarah has a question.
Okay, my question was for Travis, also relative to the positioning of the garage. And it appears as if you measure back from the street, this is the front right edge, that it could be construed as not being the closer to the street than the top left edge of the house.
Based on the submitted site plan, if you draw a parallel line from Fairway Drive, the house is closer than the garage. 24 by 24 garage, but it's not labeled as such on the plan.
Correct, but it appears that not every member of the board has the exact same drawing. The drawing should say 11 November 2020 in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm assuming the old drawing has a different date.
Yes, it has.
Yes, it's September 10th, 2018.
Okay, so we have different drawings somehow.
Well, I'm going to say, to the benefit of the board, the question is front setback. So the only application before the board this evening is with regard to exceeding the 30-foot front setback maximum.
So
this isn't an evaluation of the floor plan or the house arrangement, simply that the structure they're proposing is greater than 30 feet from Fairway Drive.
What did the public see for a plan and the abutters?
Well, the whole
Well, the whole package I'm looking through here is the current package.
and that's what
I put in all of the packets that were available and I believe what was posted online. But again, the floor plan is not being evaluated by the zoning board this evening. It's exceedance of the 30-foot max to a structure in the bottom right-hand corner of the property. There's also not necessarily any guarantee that the applicant will propose the footprint that's on this plan. They're showing a representative floor plan for a structure that is approximate in size to those in the neighborhood in excess of 30 feet from Fairway Drive.
I do see the correct drawing in the electronic email we got. It's just the printed package had the other one.
Okay? So the public sees the appropriate information. And at least 2 board members have the appropriate information.
again,
I submit to the board that you're not evaluating footprint or house design with this. You're looking to allow a structure in excess of 30 feet from Fairway Drive.
based on
Based on the information provided by the applicant.
Audrey, you're on mute.
Sorry. I hear what you're saying. That was what was applied for. If that's what we're going to listen, what we're going to hear tonight, when would this section that I brought up be addressed?
If the house plan were turned in and it was determined another variance would be needed, you would hear from the applicant at that time, should they choose to apply.
Gotcha.
Are there any other questions from members of the board?
Nope.
Hearing, board members?
Well, could I ask a question?
Okay. Sorry, Susan.
Luke?
Yes,
Luke?
go ahead. Yes.
Could I ask of Travis, to applicant, would it help expedite, be beneficial or not, for them agree to repost this hearing with the proper garage on it and get the variance then and there all together? At the next go-around at the next meeting?
Well, it would have to be renoted.
Get it out of the way?
Well, there's no getting.
Yeah, I know, I understand that. I understand that. They won't be breaking ground now. Renotice it and get the two variances all in one rather than piecemeal.
Is our case as strong for the garage rather than the location? It's a totally different animal.
Is that a motion, Suzanne?
I would like, yeah, I think it would be to their benefit, but I would make a motion that the applicant resubmit, that he withdraw this without prejudice, resubmit with the garage needing the
is a garage,
variance
yes.
as well as the house.
Motion made, is there a second?
I actually think from a administrative standpoint that Tavis is correct in that we would, instead of requiring the applicant to do that, it would either be their choice or they would resubmit if there was another denial requiring a variance. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense to do it, but I just don't think the board can make a motion to require that.
Well, I tried to put that out there as a test to see what the applicant would say. I think it's more beneficial, but if they don't, I'd like to hear from them.
I'd like to consult with my team, if possible.
Well, the applicant's going to consult for a second. We'll be right back.
I have a question for Travis.
Tavis.
Okay. Tim, just hold on 1 second. He's consulting with the applicants right now on this question, so we'll be right back.
I just want, whatever the zoning administrator feels about this, there'll be a notation in the file, so at least the question will be answered, going forward, whether it comes back or not.
Mm-hmm.
We
That
hope.
was a good, Audrey, that was a good catch. Very nice.
Yeah, Audrey, Sarah couldn't hear you. What did you say? She'd like to hear what you just said.
She's on mute. Audrey. Audrey,
But
can you repeat what you said? I couldn't hear you.
I said that I think that it's important that the question get answered by the zoning administrator or have a note in a file as to that it's been addressed, whether they come back, whether it's necessary for them to come back or not. I just didn't want this section to be hanging out there and not addressed. So I can't tell by the drawing whether it needs a variance for that or not. The zoning administrator or the building official would have to do a denial and bring that forward.
Yeah. But the applicant chooses to come back. Yeah.
Now that I have the right drawing, that is.
Which I don't.
Did you get the electronic package, Suzanne? It's open. If you open that, it's in there.
I can't go from this format on my iPad to that without losing you. I don't know how to. I'm truly just trying to make it easier for the applicant, if that's their desire. If not, I have no problem proceeding.
And when you look at the email presentation of where the garage is, and you look going straight out to the
Going
road,
forward with the 30-foot, yeah.
parallel to the sideline, it could be in equal distance.
When the applicants come back and they'd like action on the current 30-foot request. So. We do have a motion on the floor. Suzanne, what was your motion? Was it a motion or there was no second on it, so we're still in the discussion phase.
I'm fine with the discussion. If it would facilitate the application going forward to do the two variances at once, if it should be needed, then I would think that this would be the opportune time to do it. If it's felt that that's not needed, I mean, to come, to come back, if it's felt it's not needed, and he'd come back another time, I just think it would be expeditious to do it by denying this without prejudice, and then have him come back with the two variance requests.
The applicant would like to move forward with the current request for the 30-foot application as submitted.
What was that, Luke? I didn't catch it.
The applicant would like to move forward with the application as submitted.
Fine.
So there's been no second to her motion.
Correct. That motion dies. Board members?
We have to go through the criteria.
Number one, variance will not be contrary to the public interest because it's fitting with the rest of the house. It seems to be fitting with the rest of the houses in the neighborhood.
Well, we usually combine 1 and 2 because they're similar.
Yeah, this one, it preserves the spirit of the ordinance. It is observed, I believe. 3, substantial justice is done because I'll let somebody else do that.
Where are you? I had to plug my computer in. Its battery's going dead.
Number 3, substantial justice is done because
the applicant is, the benefit to the applicant does not outweigh the benefit or harm to the public.
Does outweigh.
Number 4, the value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished.
I would address that and say I don't believe it will be because other buildings are beyond the 30 foot. So I don't see that that would have a negative impact.
We have no expert we have no expert testimony one way or the other. So typically, we don't delve deep into that one.
Number 5, little enforcement of the provision of the ordinance would result in unnecessary because.
Yeah, I noticed on his application, I had to go in the other room to get my paperwork. He addresses under number 5A, he addresses the substantial relationship to the public as far as fair and substantial or reasonable, but he doesn't talk about the fairness and the substantial benefit. He doesn't address A and B under number 5. I can't find the darn paper.
Oh, I think he only needs to address A for hardship, and without, this lot does have a hardship because without granting this variance, there is no buildable area.
Well, typically it's A and B, or alternatively, unnecessary hardship. I have to say, I don't have a big issue with this application being granted, but I don't see that both A and B have been addressed under 5.
So Suzanne, if you read B, it says if the criteria in subparagraph A are not established, and then you go on. But Oftentimes they're not, but in this case, it does create a hardship, all by itself, because there is no buildable area that the house can be placed without a variance.
Use A or B, so go ahead. Sarah?
I think if we look at those that have the November 11th, 2029, you see that the permits received with NHDES dredge and fill and special use permits. And then you look at the actual drawing itself, and you see all the wetlands area. I think the special conditions of the lot are very clearly established.
Gone through all those. Is there a motion on the table? So I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion to approve case 18V20, variance under Article 175-70A 1 and 2, tax map 243060, 9 Fairway Drive. The variance was filed for on 10/10/2000. See, this is 18. That's the wrong date. I'll have to have someone fill the correct date in. For the setback of the variance, I gotta find the memo. Per the memo, with the conditions as outlined by the planner.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
Luke?
Is there any further discussion? Tim?
Should there be Audrey's comment there too about the distance from the road or the garage location? Should there something be put in there just to cover what she said, because that was pretty important.
Audrey, you want to amend my motion?
Jim, I don't think they'll be able to get a building permit if it doesn't meet that garage
It's fine.
diameter.
If they check all the stuff, then it's covered up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll do a roll call. Audrey Klein,
Yes.
Tim Cronin,
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan,
Yes.
Sarah Stowe,
Yes.
myself, yes. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted, for meeting us. Welcome to Wolfeboro. We will.
Do the minutes while you, or I guess we should. I don't have this thing in front of me.
Okay.
With the corrections?
That's why I'm here. You're right here, girl.
Okay, minutes
Thank you very much.
from November 9th, 2020.
Can I make a comment, Lou? I just wanted to thank the secretary. We'd asked that she include who were members, who were alternates, and, the various officers and whatnot. And I thought she did an excellent job with that, and I wanted to thank her.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any corrections on page 1? Page 2?
Page 3.
Page 3?
I'm going to motion the minutes from November 9th, 2020 is written.
I'll second that.
Second.
I'll do a roll
I'll do a roll call vote. Audrey Klein.
Yes.
Tim Cronin.
Cronin.
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan.
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah Silk.
Myself.
Yes.
Myself, yes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, on other business, could just read quickly, this number 5 for variance, and I address this to Tavis. It's been my understanding, and I could be totally misunderstanding this. So since you're going to be talking to the town attorney anyway, for which I hope we can see the written question and the written answer. It's usually given to us in an envelope. So number 5, on the literal enforcement of unnecessary hardship. There's A and B, and if A and B aren't met, alternatively, they have to provide the unnecessary hardship reasoning or criteria. I've always understood and interpreted it as it shall be A and B, not A or B. So can we find out if it's A and B?
Absolutely.
Info?
I'm happy to.
I'm happy to ask, but I believe this application form is the way the statute is with A or B. But
Yeah.
We'll have that.
So go, yeah, so going forward, I don't make an issue, or we all understand how to read that.
correct.
I will help.
I will help with that.
Thank you. That's it.
Any other comments or questions on the new business or other business?
I don't know whether this is something for the board or not, or whether it's just administrative. But is there any possibility that with fewer people attending in person, that there's another room in town hall that can be used for the 3 or 4 board members that are here? Is there IT in any of the smaller conference rooms? Can there be?
IT isn't the issue, it's the television camera and YouTube connection that's only in Great Hall.
Oh. Maybe we should consider approaching the powers that be about having a second location, because unless there's a lot of people, the Great Hall is difficult as it is, never mind with trying to add IT to it from a conversation standpoint.
Yeah, we can
Look into that. And then, I mean, in all likelihood, we could be going back to a complete remote. Who knows? Fairly soon here.
Audrey, I don't think we can meet the COVID restrictions in a smaller room.
Well,
I was here.
depends on the size of the room. I mean, I don't know what other conference rooms are available, but certainly in what would have been the old library, there's room for 3 people, or maybe 4, and still distance with masks.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, I just think there should be some exploration of other places to do meetings such as this.
I totally understand it. I was here Thursday night for an Ag Commission meeting because we had more than 10 people, and it was dreadful. You couldn't hear. It's too much. We weren't on TV, but just for social distancing, you couldn't hear people. And echoing in this room is atrocious.
It is horrible.
And the state right to know law said the public has to be able to just discern what's being said. And we, the members, at least I speak for myself, and it's not because I'm hard of hearing, I couldn't understand a lot of the muffled words that were being said. So, Luke, I have to commend you for handling a total chaotic meeting. Very stressful, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It's happened twice now, and it seems like it seems like we almost had a better thing going when we were doing completely remote. So we got to look at that between now and the next meeting, because if that's a better way for us to do things, and we can all actually hear each other and have a meaningful meeting where we're not all running around in here, that might be the way to go. So.
Well, as chairman, I would hope that you would inquire with whomever to see if that can't be accomplished.
I will.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay. We have that motion. Yeah, so it's been made and seconded. All in favor, I'll do a roll call vote. Audrey Klein.
Yes.
Tim Cronin.
Yes.
Suzanne Ryan.
Absolutely.
Sarah Silk.
Yes.
Myself is yes. Okay. Good night, everybody, and thank you.
Good night.